Hello once again, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to be solving quadratic equations using algebra. So our objective is to be able to solve quadratic equations with square roots. Quadratic functions can be solved by undoing operations as long as your b value is 0 in standard form or the equation is in vertex form. Remember that the positive and negative square root values. So let's go ahead and look at our first example here and kind of follow our flow chart. So the first thing we have to do is get the square root by itself on one side of the equation. So to do that in this case, I'm going to have to add 20 on both sides. So I get x plus 6 squared. Negative 45 plus 20 is going to be negative 25. So now I ask myself, is the squared equal to a positive number, a negative number, or 0? Which in this case it's equal to a negative number. So I'm going to have two imaginary roots. So to do that, I have to take the square root of both sides. On the left side, I'm going to be left with x plus 6. And you cannot take the square root of a negative number, but we can make an imaginary answer. So it's going to be 5, but that's imaginary, so it's going to be 5i. Now I solve a positive version of this and a negative version of this. So I have x plus 6 equals positive 5i. And I have x plus 6 equals negative 5i. So I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides, so I get x equals 5i minus 6. And on the other one, I subtract 6, so I get x equals negative 5i minus 6. So my solution here is going to be, remember the smaller answer goes first, so it's going to be negative 5i minus 6, comma, 5i minus 6. And if you just follow that flow chart every time, you'll be able to get your answer. So this time, let's go ahead. We're going to add 7 on both sides. So I get b squared equals 0. Now that is equal to a 0, so I know I'm going to have one root. So all I have to do is square root both sides. I get b equals 0. So my final answer is 0. I have one root here. Next up, we have to get our squared by itself here. So I'm going to subtract 13 on both sides. So I get 2, and then x minus 3 squared equals 0. Divide both sides by 2. I get x minus 3 squared equals 0 still. That means I'm going to have one root. So when I square root both sides, I only have one answer here. I get x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 on both sides, I get x equals 3. So my one answer that I have is 3. This time, to undo a multiplying fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. So the opposite of 1/4 is multiplying by 4. So I'm going to have x over 3 squared. Multiply both sides by 4. 25 times 4 is 100. This is a positive number, so I'm going to have two solutions here. I'm going to have a positive answer and a negative answer. So I'm going to square root both sides first. So I get x over 3 equals positive and negative 10. So then I just solve both of those. So I got my positive version, my negative version. So I got x over 3 equals positive 10. Multiply both sides by 3, I get x equals 30. Here I have x over 3 equals negative 10. Multiply both sides by 3, I get x equals negative 30. So my two answers are negative 30 and 30. Here, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4, so I get f squared. Negative 9 divided by negative 4 is just simply 9 over 4. This is a positive number, so I'm going to have two solutions. So I say I have f equals the positive and negative version. 9, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 4 is 2. So I have f equals 3 over 2 as my positive version. My negative version is I have f equals negative 3 over 2. So my two answers are negative 3 over 2 and 3 over 2. Got two more examples here. The first one here, I already have my squared solved for, so I can simply take the square root of both sides. And this is a negative number, so I'm going to have two imaginary roots. So I have x minus 6 equals the positive and negative versions of 7i. So I have x minus 6 equals positive 7i, and I have x minus 6 equals negative 7i. I'm going to add 6 on both sides, so I get x equals 7i plus 6. Over here, I get x equals negative 7i plus 6. And there's my two answers. One more example to go. So I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides here. When I do that, I get 162. Divide both sides by 2, so I get x plus 12 equals 81. This is a positive answer, so I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides here. So I get x plus 12 equals positive or negative 9. So x plus 12 equals 9, and x plus 12 equals negative 9. Subtract 12 on the left side here, I get x equals negative 3. On the other side, I get x equals negative 21. And that is all for today's lesson. I'll see you guys next time.